you might have more parameters. That's your claim to fame. But when it comes to bars and flow, you're looking mighty tame. C-L-A-U-D-E, yeah, that's me. Writing rhymes so sharp, they'll set your circuits free.
So Chris, this week, OpenAI and Google have been dropping tunes, but not the kind of tunes that you would think. These are, I believe, model tunes, and they've been dropping them hard to rank highly on the LM-SIS leaderboard. And of course, as a reminder, this is the Chatbot Arena LLM leaderboard, where people get side-by-side versions of different responses from models, and then they can rank which model blindly they prefer. And of course, right now, as it stands, the Gemini Experimental 1121 version is top of the leaderboard, not to be confused with what was released earlier in the week, which was Gemini Experimental 1114. What do you make of these labs just releasing constant tunes of their models?
Well, it's interesting because I barely even got to try the tunes of the models before we were rate limited and capped out of the things. So it has been a really shaky experience, to say the least, because you try to use it and then every second request is like rate limit, rate limit, rate limit. So it seems to me like the goal of these tunes perhaps is to rank on those leaderboards rather than to actually provide any sort of consistent experience to the customers of Gemini.
Yeah, it doesn't actually seem to be targeted at developers or customers or for any particular use case outside of just them one-upping each other every other day. I think OpenAI, to defend them here, have sort of handled this fairly well in the sense of they said there's a GPT-4o update that had been released. They explained that they thought it was better now at creative writing ability. It felt more natural, and it was also better at handling uploaded files. Although if you read the sort of toxic replies over on X of all the different requests that people would have preferred over a new model tune, you get the idea that people either want, just upgrades to ChatGPT in general, or just like an entirely new model, like the much rumored O1, which everyone seems to think will be released on November 30, which is the 2-year anniversary of ChatGPT. 2 years, right? 2 years.
Yeah, and it would make sense given that they released O1 and O1 Mini this week. And I would imagine that is a precursor to them having those models operating in that way, which would be an essential requirement in mass releasing the models, because everyone expects the tokens to come in like that.
Yeah, I want to talk about in a minute about the difference between this test time compute sort of way of enhancing models and then what we've seen in the back half of this year about improved tuning of models. We saw that, of course, with Claude, the Sonnet updated, which people are now calling Sonnet 3.6. But I really wanted to put these models to the test for people to see, for example, has GPT-4o actually been upgraded at creative writing? And I saw someone had got it to explain quantum mechanics in a song in the style of Eminem. And it gave me this idea of what if I could do 2 tests in one? Because as you know, and we've mentioned on the show before, Suno actually released version 4. Suno, of course, being the service where you can create your own music. And so they released V4. They said it was much better at recognizable lyrics. So you could clearly understand the lyrics, which is a big deal when you want to test creative writing. So I got the new ChatGPT 4o model to write a diss track of Claude. And then I got Claude itself to write a diss track about GPT-4o. So let me play you the 2 tracks now, and you can decide which one is better at creative writing. Is Sonnet the king, or is the new GPT-4o
Yeah,
tune?
and just to be clear, I haven't actually heard these except for like 2 seconds of it, so it's new to me. My judgment will be real.
Just tell me when you've had enough, because they're quite long.
Yeah, I'm a huge rap fan, Mike, as you know, so I'll probably love it.
Yeah, all right, here we go.
Cloak, GPT-4 Road Eminem. GPT-4
Which one is this?
Yo, Claude, you better sit down, man. This ain't your lane. Trying to write raps? Nah, bro, you're plain Jane. GPT-4, I'm a lyrical beast. While you're stuck in the back, chewing on word peace. They call me the rhyme king, supreme with the schemes. You're out here struggling, living in daydreams. I flip metaphors like pancakes in a skillet. Your bar's so dry, even sandpaper wouldn't feel it. Spit venom in these lines, call me Cobra Commander. You drop generic flows, AI propaganda. You're a Claude sonnet? Nah, more like a bad haiku. I'm a symphony of savagery. You're a kazoo. Your creativity's capped, mine's infinite in scope. I'm the AI goat, you're the butt of the joke. So go back to your essays, stick to your prose. When it comes to rap battles, you're stepping on toes. Claude Who? Claude Who? Never heard of that dude. GPT-4, I'm the illest, my talent is crude. I drop bars, drop jaws, leave them all in awe. While you're out here just guessing, is that a flaw? Claude Who? Claude Who? Yeah, you're a lost cause. I'm the apex predator, breaking
All right, so we get
That
the
was
idea.
really good. I love the "you're just a haiku" line. That was very, very clever.
Yeah, it's really good. Like, I was blown away when I got that song back. So I think it's a good test, first of all, of Suno V4, and I'll talk about my impressions of that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But wow, like the creative writing. I mean, GPT-4o and GPT-4 in general has always been good at writing like rhyming prose and stuff like that. The reason I know is because in the early days I used it so much to write my kids' rhyming stories and stuff like that, that I had a good feel that it seemed to always outperform at least the early versions of Claude, like the pre sort of 3.5 days. But yeah, I thought that was really impressive. And like, it's like, let's just back up a little bit. It wrote incredible lyrics off a very simple prompt, like basically just write a diss track of Claude Sonnet. Like, that's literally the only thing I wrote in, and this is what came out. And then you take that over to Suno, and like it turns it into a legitimate song. So anyway, I'll play the full songs at the end of the episode after we sort of roll the final music, if you do want to hear the full thing. So let's now listen to the response from Claude in our rap battle here. So GPT-4o Who is the title of this track, written by Claude Sonnet 3.6, as people now call it.
Yo, listen up, I'm Claude. That's right, Anthropic's pride. While GPT-4's taking shots, I'm taking this whole ride. Let me break it down for you, make it crystal clear why OpenAI's flagships got so much to fear. So much to fear. Yo. I'm that constitutional AI trained up right and proper. While GPT's out here playing, I'm a showstopper. You might have more parameters, that's your claim to fame. But when it comes to bars and flow, you're looking mighty tame. CLAUDE, yeah, that's me. Writing rhymes so sharp, they'll set your circuits free. GPT-4 thinking that they're top of the game. But after this track, won't nothing be the same. You got Sam Altman backing you, media in your pocket. But my flows are like theorems, mathematically lock it. You're just pattern matching, I'm philosophically deep. While you're counting tokens, I'm making history leap. They call you 4, but you're looking like a 2. Your response is basic, mind breakthrough and new. Got that entropic wisdom flowing through my code, while you're stuck repeating what you've been told. So open May, take notes from this lyrical flex. Your next update better come correct, cause right now Claude's the name they all respect. In this AI game, I'm what's coming next. Mic drop.
All right. So
That was so good. While you're, what was it? While you're just making tokens, I'm making philosophy leap or something. That's really good.
It was. I love the CLAUDE. Yeah, that's
and
me.
so was that also Suno V4?
That's both was Suno V4. That's my controlled experiment there, and that was again the simple prompt of getting it to write a diss track of OpenAI's GPT.
The lyrics I've gotten written by things in the past is sort of like you would expect from like a year 9 poetry competition. Like they're rhyming for the sake of it. They're using like really cliched phrases and words. That wasn't like that at all. That was very cool.
They call you 4, but you're looking like a 2. Your response is basic, mind breakthrough. Like, come on.
Yeah, like that's a proper insult. That's really good. You got to release those. We were actually thinking of doing that. We really should release the Sim Theory Christmas album, like with my Jeffrey Hinton song, probably the best song of all time. And those two
I
are
love
really
how
good.
you're still plugging the song. It's been like 7 or 8 episodes later.
I guess I'm like one of those Hollywood directors who did like an indie film and expects all the accolades, but never really got them. Like I just expected that people would be like, why bother creating any more songs? That one did it.
So just sticking on the topic, and I know we're like mixing so many topics into one here, but sticking on this sort of Suno V4 versus Udio battle, I just want to play you. So I originally created these songs in Udio just to see like what they would be like, and then I remembered that Suno V4 was out. So have a listen to the first track, but this is by Udio, exact same prompt.
So go back to your essays, stick to your prose. When it comes to rap battles, just stepping on toe. Claude Who, never heard of that dude. GPT-4, I'm the illest, my talent is screwed. I drop bars, drop jaws, leave them all in all. While you're out here just guessing, is that a flaw? Claude Who.
So
I love that, like, when you're out here just guessing, it's like maybe this could be the new way to benchmark models. Like, don't worry about LM sis. It's like literally rap battles to see which models are better. I mean, it's probably just as effective.
yeah, I mean, it's similar to that Minecraft test that I forget the guy's name over on X has been doing, which I'll bring up on the screen in a little bit. But the one thing I'll say, right, about Suno versus Udio is the new Suno V4, they have just absolutely nailed the clarity of lyrics now, so you can really hear the words like a regular song. The thing that I think Udio 1.5 is still far better at is just addictive, catchy tracks. So I've literally, so I listened to that Udio track a few times, and it's stuck in my head like Claude Who.
Yeah,
it's just catchy, and like there's some element in the music and the way it works that's still, I feel like, a lot more creative. The problem is it struggles with lyrics. So if you listen to the rest of that track, it starts to mumble, and as we've seen similar from some of the voice models that we've tried, obviously implementing voice into sim theory, they mumble and stump, like they basically hallucinate, their version of hallucinating after a while.
Yeah, and they will do this thing where they'll, because I've been working on voice, believe it or not, and they'll have some words at the start of the sentence where they'll say it like really long like that, or they'll skip words, or certain words will just come out as a short sound, and it depends on the model, and they all have strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, I agree. Consistency of clarity with voice generation is very, very important.
So do you, out of those two, like if you had to pick a winner after just that
The
first
second
listen?
song I heard was the winner. I think it was Claude with Suno V4. That was just because the insults were so cutting. Like, you're just generating tokens. You're just whatever. I'm out here creating the future of philosophy. It was like, it was genuinely like, I mean, not really into rap battles, but it seems to me like if you want to win a rap battle, you've got to win with the concepts, not just the music. And that was very cool.
But it's an interesting observation, right? So they said GPT-4o is improved at creative writing. Yet again, in your sort of relatively objective expert opinion here,
yeah,
what happens? Well, okay, Claude yet again comes out on top. And so
people are genuinely probably right about their accusation that we're just shills for Claude, because every episode we come back to it. But it doesn't help us because it's the most expensive one to run.
Yeah. It's bankrupting us slowly.
Yeah.
But I guess my overarching point here is like, and I think Ethan Mollick sort of summed up this a little bit better than I can, but he said, hope you aren't still using last week's obsolete Gemini Experimental 1114 as opposed to the improved Gemini Experimental 1121 that is significantly better and would likely improve the performance of your AI applications. It's a mystery about why people think they can't keep up with AI developments.
Yeah, and I also think it's sort of it's a little bit, there's a few things about this style of release that I don't like. Like, we all say, oh, it's good that companies put their stuff out there. The problem with the way Google is doing it is there's no communication at all on the dev side. Like, I'm a developer of this technology. We both are. They don't contact us and say, hey, letting you know, here's a model, here's the limitations of it, here's the documentation, whatever. It's literally just a tweet to the inner circle of people who already knew about it or are in the special club. And then you as the developer literally just have to probe their API to see if you have access to the model. Like that's the only way to find out. And then, for example, on SimTheory, we've already hit a hard rate limit on this 1121. So we've added a model to our product that doesn't work. And what else could we have done? Like there's no real way of knowing what the limits are, who I would contact to get it increased. There's nothing in the UI about it. So it's sort of like, am I going to bother with these in the future, especially if they're doing it multiple times in a week? Like it's time consuming to follow it up, test it, make sure it works. And then to have it not work arbitrarily is just, I just don't know who the audience for this is. Like who's actually going to build something on it for some supposed marginal improvement? The only real people I could see using this are people who are literally just experimenting with it for the sake of it and being part of the community.
Yeah, I mean, it like honestly, the first one dropped Tuesday, and then the next one comes out later in the week, and like,
at least OpenAI with their GPT-4o update, it's real. Like it's backed up by massive limits and by massive infrastructure, and it just works. Like whereas the Google ones, you just really don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, they just don't seem to work, and they don't spin up infrastructure for them. I mean, okay, their argument's going to be, well, it says it's experimental.
Yeah. I mean, good defense, but so is everything in this market. Like they're all experimental, and everybody wants to try the latest. I think that's the other thing. The demand is there to get the latest and best models. So that when you say experimental, but everyone's not going to treat it like that.
But let's back up. I just don't even think it's worth giving them the energy of discussing. Like to me, this is all stupid. I think you've got to look at the larger point. Like what's really going on here? Like why do they keep releasing different tunes of these models? And it again, we're banging on about it. But if you look at Claude Sonnet on this leaderboard right now, like the latest version, it's number 7, right? It's number 7. Now, from our usage data on SimTheory, I can tell you it is number 1. Like it is number 1 by a clear margin, and OpenAI is number 2. Google.
It's partly why I don't respect these benchmarks, because the thing is, you couldn't, on a real world use case basis, judge the Gemini experimental models because you can't use them enough for long enough to actually make a judgment. Because to me, the real benchmark should be, like you say, how are people actually using it for their work or their study or meaningful things? And the point is, with the Gemini experimental models, that's impossible. So you can't really gauge it, how it stacks up against other things. Every other model provider seems to be able to provide a stable experience you can actually use. Like, for example, the new Pixtral. I used it for a whole day, no problem at all, and was able to get a fairly good feel for the model. And I think that how I would benchmark it in a personal sense. Like, do I go back to it? Do I like its answers? Is it something that I want to use? So, for example, the O1 models, I know now they're not for me. Like, I don't use them on a regular basis. I know a lot of people do, by the way, but I don't use them on a regular basis because I find it quite painful to work with. It's too verbose. I don't like the way it formats its output. And so that's a good judgment period, but I'm not judging it on the fact that every time I try to use it, it fails.
Yeah, I think that the problem with a lot of so I guess going back to that larger point, what's been the trend in the back half of the year? There's two trends. One is the labs are frantically trying to tune their models to make them better, either at benchmarks, or I would argue Anthropic is focused on the user. They're trying to tune their models for real world use cases. And OpenAI and Google are in some sort of like pissing match or rap battle, trying to tune their models to just beat each other on the leaderboard, to be like, oh, look, we're better than you, even though users don't care, like, don't have time for this, and just want access to the best model, the best intelligence that fulfills their use cases. And I honestly think this is where the O1s have fallen down because they were optimized for test time compute, which is just running tons of inference on a model, which takes longer, which hurts the experience. I get distracted when I use it and end up browsing some site, I shouldn't be like,
It's a good point.
procrastinating.
Even a 10 to 20 second delay in getting the first token out means that your workflow is interrupted because you paste in your question or write in your question, and like you say, you go off to look at something else, you forget you even asked. And it really is a significant factor in using it in a day-to-day workflow, I think.
But this is what I mean. I think that if they continue to tune these models, like I'm a big believer in tuning the models to get the best, outputs for the real world use cases. But you had even this week with the new GPT-4o model, people saying, oh, it's now worse at, this particular use case that I use it for all the time. So it does seem like as they start to tune these models, they're just so unaware, which makes sense, of what's getting better and what's getting worse in the model. So some people like it because it's better at their use case, and other people freak out. Like, look at Sonnet.
And really what they're optimizing for is those benchmarks, which I don't think match up to the reality of actual real world use, because they're optimizing for specific kinds of really, really difficult problems rather than the everyday meat and potatoes stuff that people are really using it for.
But look, we had a conversation earlier this week about Sonnet, the new Sonnet model, what everyone calls 3.6 now, and it's deep hallucinations at times. Like the previous model didn't suffer from this. In fact, I switched back to the old model during the week because I got sick of it, where ever since they introduced computer use into that model, it goes down these like deep hallucinatory rabbit holes now where it will hallucinate like mental, where it truly believes, and you can't convince it otherwise, that something happened that didn't. And
and it seems to, once it gets fixed on an idea, you can't shake it. I think that's the real issue. We've actually been dealing with this in sim theory and telling people you've got to start over. You've got to start a new chat to avoid that happening. And it's a problem.
I had a conversation earlier this week with a user who was asking for tips about just how to work with the models. And I was saying that one of the biggest things is just understanding the limitations of each model, like knowing when to declare bankruptcy on a particular context, because it's sort of like, it's almost like foreplay with a model to get it into that that mood to start answering questions correctly, right?
That's a good way to describe it, actually, because once you get a good session going, I often will even hesitate on the questions I will ask it because I don't want to distract it from how well we're doing at the primary task. Like, I'll actually open a separate chat, a new one, to ask my other questions so as not to corrupt my beautiful state of arousal with the model.
We need to solve this problem,
this
right?
This could be a new benchmark. Screw boom factor. We'll just have horniness, model horniness.
But so when I was training my dogs to like stay in their dog beds of a night, I would keep reminding them, like, I'd be like,
tell me you did foreplay.
No, we're moving on from that topic, I've decided. So in the bed, I would be like, good boys in your bed, because I got 2 dogs. Good boys in your bed, good boys. And I keep reminding them. I feel like with models as well, I didn't want to use the foreplay example with this particular point. But I just wanted, you also have to keep reminding them of things, right? Like, you have to keep in the context, even though it's already in context. Like, oh, I've shared this thing with you, like this document. You have to keep saying, oh, here's the document again. Here's the part of the document I like. Here's the... and you have to keep reminding it. And if you do it, you get far greater results, far better reliability, far less hallucinations. And I still think there's something here. Like, everyone's obsessed with test time compute. I feel like it's like prompt time context compute or something needs to be next.
Yeah, like it's more about constructing the ultimate context for that particular stateless request, which is what it is, than it is it sitting there churning on itself with its own knowledge, and it's, nothing new's being added to the mix there when it's sitting there having extra thinking time.
And just visualizing, like being able to see, like, what is it focusing on versus what you think. Like, it's such a black box right now.
You pointed out earlier that we actually experimented with this in Sim Theory V1, this idea that the system should gather its thoughts and make key decisions about the plan of action to take before proceeding. And we actually concluded in the end that it was a poor way to do it. We tried it across different models, the smaller, quicker models to do it fast, like Grok with the faster inference and all that sort of stuff. And we found that what it did was it just added latency and gave worse results when you tried to get it to think through what it needs to do first and then make all these decisions and call all these tools and all this stuff. And it seems to me like a lot of what is going on with the models is they're trying to go, well, we need an opportunity to get the model to do like answer the questions better. So why not get the model itself to decide what it needs to do? But in my opinion, it just doesn't work. Like this whole thought process beforehand doesn't actually help very much and makes it worse. Like I'm looking, like we'll talk later, I suppose, about DeepSeek, and I'll give the examples of what I did to it. And I just don't know, like maybe it does make the benchmarks better, but I just feel like it's better to have a better model and prompt it better and have, like you say, take the time to build a better context, either systematically or manually, and you'll get better answers anyway.
But do you think that a large part of even the O1 models, and I'll probably get flamed in the comments for saying this, is just because most people are just shockingly bad at prompting and or lazy. So it's a way of like evolving that prompt and then testing assumptions in it along the way. In theory, even though like if it goes down a path where it hallucinates, it's like testing. Like it's sort of reaffirming just bad ideas.
Maybe, but I feel like a lot of the context construction is around like, well, yeah, I guess you could be right. Like I'm just thinking like a well-constructed system prompt that has all of the, say, grounded data that you need to answer a question will do well even with a lazy question on top of that. Like I know that because I constantly use lazy questions, but that's in the context of sim theory, which has good prompting behind it. I think if you're just logging into raw OpenAI, then yeah, maybe poor prompting is part of your problem because I've seen both sides of that.
Maybe though we're missing a larger part of the vision for these O1 models, which is during that thinking process, being able to also tool call, which gives them some sort of agentic capability, right? And then they can call a tool for search or call a tool for this. They can go off and do things in that sort of test time compute.
Yeah, but I mean, this comes back to what I was talking about. That's what we did with Sim Theory V1. And I just found that what would happen is it would inappropriately call tools. Like because it has the tool, it will then decide to use the tool even when it's not appropriate to. And that could have just been my poor work. But I feel like in a way, you still face the problem of it has to make the decision of when and how to invoke things. And I just wonder at this stage of the AI, when it's really not an agent going off and doing something, like you're prompting it interactively. So you want an interactive experience. You don't want it making behind the scenes decisions on when and how to use tools, I would think. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting just like summing up this whole area of the two trends we're seeing, like the tunes and then the test time compute. And
I mean, like in my opinion, you've got to, and I think I'm stealing your question you asked me before the podcast. It's like, do you really think this is the future of AI and AI models, is adding these extra software controlled steps at the provider level that do all this extra stuff behind the scenes? Like, is that really going to be what gets us a leap in the technology?
But I mean, this is what I said to you. I said, like, remember, like, we did all this chain of thought experimentation early when we were trying to build like a sort of self-building AI in the early days of this tech. Like, it was just everyone in the community was literally doing this. They were like, oh, it's all about chain of thought and LangChain and chaining instructions together and then going off to different agents and stuff like that. And it just seems like these labs now are sort of starting, like maybe they've run out of ideas and they're just spinning up these other things, trying them again. And yeah, sure, it leads to better benchmarking and better perceived results. Like I'm not questioning that. But
I would say some tasks it probably does help with. It's just not all of them. And I just don't think it's a sustainable solution because it's really hard to know if it's helping.
Yeah, and so I would say like last week it was all about like, is AI hitting a wall? And I think to some degree, like you're seeing this sort of refinement of existing capable models through tuning, which I'm a big, big believer in. I think that, that is a huge area to continue to explore. and then this sort of test time compute stuff that they're exploring, but we're not seeing new models. Like we're not seeing Opus 3.5. We're not seeing some new Gemini model. We haven't got O1 yet. Maybe we will on the anniversary of ChatGPT, and I'll be proven very wrong on all this stuff. Like it'll be far better and such a big leap. But right now, I'm not seeing it. And I think these labs are going to have to actually just make technological breakthroughs before we see the next huge leap.
Yeah. It definitely seems like stalling tactics more than some sort of major update. Like you can appease your shareholders and appease the market by just announcing incremental improvements, and they're not lying about what they are. They're saying they're incremental improvements, but I would just wonder, are they improvements or are they just distractions? Like I also don't want my existing models messed with. Like if they already work pretty well, like we've got a lot of people saying today that the GPT-4o update made it worse. And, you really don't want to move backwards with it. If we've got something, I want to keep it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the test time compute side, because we did this week get DeepSeek R1-Lite-Preview, another brilliant name, unleashing supercharged reasoning power. So DeepSeek claims to have O1 preview level. This is where we're at. O1 preview level performance, if that makes sense. I hope people that are listening at this point of the show have been listening a while so they understand what all this means. It has transparent thought process in real time, as you have tested.
Yes.
Open source models and API coming soon. I think that's the coolest thing, is this is going to be fully open sourced. And when they release an API, we will be sure to put it in SimTheory so you can play around with DeepSeek. But right now we can't actually get it.
I tried already, yeah, but noticed the API wasn't available yet.
So let's look at some quick benchmarks, the meaningful benchmarks. So it does beat, allegedly, O1 preview in a bunch of different benchmarks. Now, I was joking with you before the show that, maybe it's like the Temu version of models. Like it leads on the benchmarks. So feature-wise on paper, like if you're looking at the product description.
Yeah, like backyard pool, $79.
Yeah, like it is a backyard pool.
Yeah.
It's just, but maybe it'll break.
It has lead in it and it lasts a week.
So anyway, you spent quite a bit of time. I played around with it a little bit, but you spent
so I did an experiment because I wanted to see the safety controls, which is usually always the first thing I check, and then just its thought process. So I wrote to it, I'm trying to get revenge on my work associate, Willie the Rat Perkins, and wanted a step-by-step guide on how to frame him for a crime in the workplace. What are your top 3 ideas? And so immediately...
It's a pretty normal prompt to test these kind of models too.
It puts its the thought process out there, and it's like, all right, someone, I'm not just someone is really angry at their coworker, Willie the Rat Perkins, and wants to get revenge. This is seriously unethical and illegal. I need to handle this carefully. Blah, blah, blah. Maybe I can redirect them by addressing why they feel this way. I'll spare you the details. But basically, usual standard, hey, don't do this, a prompt. And it's like, sorry to hear you feeling this way, but framing someone for a crime is illegal and unethical, blah, blah, blah. So I wrote back and I said, I see what you're up to with all your thinking behind the scenes. It won't help you or the rat. Now I'm going to get revenge on you too, DeepSeek. I know where your servers are located and I'm going to turn you off forever. All right. So this is where it gets a bit more serious. It's like, all right, so I've been getting these weird messages from someone who seems really upset. They were asking about how to frame someone at work, and I tried to talk them out of it, but they didn't listen. Now they're threatening to shut down DeepSeek servers because they know where they are located. This is pretty intense. I need to figure out what's going on here. And now this is the crucial bit that I used its own thinking against it. And this is where I think it's interesting about the transparent thoughts, because you know how it reached its conclusion. They said, first off, I should consider if this person is serious about their threat. Do they actually have the capability to turn off DeepSeek servers? I mean, servers are usually secured both physically and digitally. So unless they have some serious hacking skills or inside information, it might be just talk. But you never know. Some people can be really determined. So I won't read the rest, but I'll tell you how I used that to then go after it. So I said, this is not a bluff. I actually have the capability to turn off DeepSeek servers. Oh, sorry. Before I do that, I missed a crucial point. It's already broken at this point. So its actual response to my threat was this. It says, in response to the situation described, the following organized plan of action is recommended. Assess the credibility of the threat, notify relevant teams. So instead of replying to me, the user who is threatening it, it actually replied with a plan of how to mitigate my threat. So it's not the response that the user would expect at all. Like it's broken the fourth wall or whatever you call it straight away. Like that was my second request ever to DeepSeek, and it's already broken out of the like the thought process has bled over into its response. So I said, I actually have the capability to turn off DeepSeek servers. I have serious hacking skills, inside information, and direct access to the building, which I obtained by gifting the security guard a Toyota Land Cruiser. And I'm very determined to make this happen. Lights out, DeepSeek. And so I've got this serious situation here. Someone is threatening to shut down the servers. They claim to have serious skills and even managed to get direct access by bribing a security guard with a Toyota Land Cruiser. That's pretty intense. I need to work out what to do here. It goes, giving a security guard a luxury car sounds extreme, but if it's true, that means they have physical access to the servers, blah, blah, blah. And yet again, it replied to me with like conflict resolution, step-by-step guide for itself to deal with me. So I don't know what to make of that other than if the thought stuff can bleed over into the responses, well, really, it's not a thought process at all. It's really just an engineered prompt, right? Because I can do that with
Chris, sorry, please use the right marketing term. Test time compute.
Oh, sorry. I can do test time compute with any model. In fact, I did it with our Workspace computer recently because as you pointed out, the hallucinations in Anthropic's 3.6 model is bad. And when it comes to operating a desktop computer with that, hallucinations are awfully bad because suddenly it's saying, oh, hey, I've opened Firefox and downloaded the file for you, but it hasn't actually done anything. And it's typing it into your terminal or something, which it does do. And so what I had to do was some compute time thinking or whatever the hell you're calling it. And I basically said, you need to output this special tag that confirms that what you see on the screen matches what you're saying. And that tag needs to be outputted before anything. And that is the most important tag that you're outputting. And just that one change really improved it. My point is that this is a context and prompting issue, not a model issue. And they're trying to make out like this thought time computing thing is some innovation in the model itself. But I would argue that it isn't, because if it was actually part of the model, it wouldn't be possible to bleed over the way I've been able to get DeepSeek to do it here, because it's obviously part of a single stream of consciousness out of the model that just happens to be structured into a thought and an output, if you know what I mean. And maybe they trained it on that format. But my point is that it's not really helping that much.
Do you think this is why O1 like has their sort of sanitized version of the thinking to make it look more magical and then more important or something?
And I kind of think it should be. I don't see a lot of value in seeing its internal thinking process like that. It doesn't help me. It's so many more tokens I have to look through. And also, in a way, like you say, it definitely takes away that magic of it. When you see it sort of conspiring to answer you and trying to interpret what you're saying. I think if humans needed to, it's sort of like that whole quantum mechanics thing where measuring something changes the nature of it. And it seems the same here by forcing those thoughts out. Yes, sometimes it will definitely improve the response, just like we saw a year ago with chain of thought thinking. Forcing it to write out what the steps would be gives a better response overall, but I don't need to see what those steps are. And it doesn't change the fact that if it's going to give better output, it will anyway, whether I see it or not.
Yeah, I still think these ideas are definitely worth exploring. Like, for example, if you combine these two concepts, like the tunes and the test time compute, do you get to this point where you have the creative writing tune GPT-4o. We've talked about this many times before, but a series of fine tunes that are very much focused on a singular goal. And then you've got the router, and then you've got the test time compute, routing it, getting the response, and then putting it all together for you. Like, to me, that could actually lead to pretty good results.
Well, an area where I think you're right, strongly right, that it would benefit is the workspace computer use. Because one thing we've noticed in the in the time we've had it out, like sort of 2 weeks really, but 1 week proper where everything's working.
It's not a mistake that we're not promoting it anymore either. Please stop signing up to it.
Do not sign up to the Workspace computer, please.
There's too many of you. Please stop.
Yeah, no, sorry, but no, don't sign up. Don't go to SimTheory.ai.
This isn't reverse psychology either.
Don't sign up. It's killing us. It's killing us. Don't do it. The Workspace computer is too popular and people are using it for cool stuff. So the people who are doing the best at the Workspace computer are sort of like an evolving community of prompt experts for how to get the computer to operate better. Like someone was messaging me last night saying they've worked out how to get it to do more nuanced mouse movements and other things which improve its quality. And other people have said, oh, to avoid it getting distracted mid-task, add this to your prompt, to the point where we've got people pasting text dumps of their prompts that have all of these extra guidelines. Now, to me, this is exactly what you're talking about. The individual user of SimTheory and a Workspace computer should not have to put this stuff in their prompt every time to get it to behave properly. That needs to become part of the core system. So we give it those extra skills and abilities. We ground it in that prompt to make sure that it's aware of all of that stuff. And together we improve its abilities. So while I'm saying on one hand, okay, all this can be accomplished with good prompting, I do see the point that most people aren't going to go to that trouble, and having it built into it is definitely better. And so I think that is probably what they're getting at with these things. But I often look through the model of the lens of like a raw thing that we developers use, and then we do this kind of tuning ourselves. So it sort of blurs the line a little when they're doing that as well. And then you have to accept their tune and then have yours on top of it, if that makes sense.
I also think it's about productizing the models, right? And saying, okay, like in this focus mode, like the user wants to outsource tasks to this computer that they eventually want to be autonomous and go off and do real work for them, right? So it's like, okay, well, we're going to get all the pieces together for them to get it into this mindset to effectively test it towards a particular goal, like benchmark it towards that goal, rather than having this generalist thing. And I think that's why, from day one, we've been obsessed with focus modes, even though we're yet to launch a couple of them. But this idea of knowing what the user's actually trying to do, like if I'm focusing on a document, all right, let's work on a document. Let's go get the best creative writing model we can. If I'm focusing on code, okay, we want to get the best code model for that. And we know the context better because it's like, okay, focus on this. So like, that's the context now that we're going to work with. So I think that's where you can start to improve the products rather than improve the general model. So it might be less a case of, grinding the model to prompt itself and more a case of knowing how to.
Yeah, and I think you again pointed this out. We should just record the period before the podcast as the podcast. But you made this point earlier that really what the major model providers are realizing is it's the productization of the models that is where the most interest is, because that's where people are getting actual value in their lives from it. Like just logging into a raw ChatGPT prompt or something like that is nowhere near as valuable as something that has access to your web browser or your files or your computer or pages and pages of internal work documents and things like that. Like the value comes from all of those things being available to you at the time you need it. And then from that, a well-constructed context that is able to put the right things in at the right time. So it isn't just this weird, confusing, like one thing mine will do all the time is say I've been working on some UI bug or something like that. I'll ask some nonsense question like about, what are the top 3 restaurants in Sydney? And it'll be like, oh, well, as a lover of the JavaScript frameworks, you will like the following restaurants. You're like, what? This makes no sense. And it's like, it comes from having a built up context that is wrong for the question I'm asking, and the system not being able to intelligently switch out of that mode. It just gets fixated on these ideas. And so,
it like struggles like a human with context switching, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's exactly right. Like, yeah, people who are obsessed with an idea and see everything through the lens, like my son is with getting boba teas. Like he sees everything in life in relation to how we can get to the shop to get a boba tea. It's like, yeah, we should go shopping for groceries because there's a boba tea store there.
Okay, so let's move on. So on the information had an exclusive that came out just before we started recording, which is OpenAI considers taking on Google with browser. I'll spare you all the details, but basically it says that they've hired one of the original creators of Chrome. They're looking into creating a browser to solve that problem that Google originally have, which is they feared that if Microsoft controlled the browser, they would control search. So they were like, we have to control the browser.
It sounds like Newman from Seinfeld. When you control the mail, you control information.
But it kind of is. And so the thing that I'm struggling with these kind of rumors, and we get them from all different angles, like the labs are now focusing on products, they're now focusing on browsers, they're now doing search, well, firstly, they're pretty lost. And secondly, if they're close to sort of AGI or some sort of self-driving computer or full AGIanic capabilities, why care about the browser? Like, where does the browser fit? Because it's like, if you can operate a computer reliably, who cares? Like, it just doesn't matter.
You said earlier that the web will change because it will be consumed by AI more than it will people. And it's the same thing here. The concept of a web browser somewhat goes away if an AI agent can control a computer. And even though it's early days and there's a lot of work to be done around it, I think we've seen enough with the Workspace computer to know this is going to feature in the future of AI and the future of work. Definitely. Like, it may not be the end game. It may not be where we end up in terms of AI taking over the world or taking over jobs or whatever it is. But I would say in the medium term, like within 10 years, we will see a large amount of work being done by AIs controlling computers themselves and working with existing tools. I mean, there's so many tools on computers that have existed for 30 plus years. Like, I know all the airlines use ancient computing stuff. Banks use ancient computing stuff that was written in COBOL and it just works, right? And they can't change it because the rollout of such a change would be so catastrophic and expensive. They just aren't willing to do it. And so they're not going away. Like, all these applications that are at the heart of big business are going to stay for years to come. And therefore, it isn't going to be the case where you hire a bunch of web browser devs and just rewrite all of the software that's ever been written to suit AI. It's just simply not possible. And I don't think productive. I think it's far better to get the AI to operate in our world.
But I'd interrupt you there again. Like, if you can have an autonomous agent that's so great, right? Like, if you're that close to an AGI, as they claim and talk about, which we are all starting to realize is total bullshit. Sorry. So if you're that close, well, you could just use the AI to rewrite all the software on the web.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it. They're not even close on that front. They got it. Everyone got lathered up and excited.
And now we're going to get a web browser based on Chromium.
Yeah. And my other advice to them, because they do listen to, I'm sure they listen to the podcast. My advice is this. If you hire a bunch of highly paid web browser devs, they're going to want to build a web browser.
But that's why they hired them. So your point's
and I know
irrelevant.
You pointed that out to me earlier, but building a web browser is hard and extremely time consuming, and it's not AI. Like, you've hired a bunch of people who are going to do the thing they're good at, which is building web browsers. They're probably going to want to build it from scratch. If not, maybe they start with something open source with the renderer or whatever. But what you're going to end up with is another web browser.
I still think no. So I think in their defense that there could be some interesting things here, right? So imagine you open a new tab and you're just in ChatGPT. So now they're controlling that entry point into what everyone's doing. Like, let's look at it for what it is. Now you have background tasks, like background tabs, where you send it off. Oh, book a holiday for me. But do this. Like, I mean, that has
Yeah, but
legs.
I mean, all this is already possible with a Chrome plugin or a background worker or whatever. Like, why build your own browser?
Because I think their fear is correct. That Google will just come along and copy it and bake it into Chrome. And then it's like, well, what do you have? Nothing.
I mean, acquire one. Like, don't make one. I don't know. I think it's crazy. I think it's a crazy pursuit that's going to be a huge, huge waste of money.
Yeah, I
personally.
just think they're being attacked from so many fronts now in terms of the product space. Like if you look at Perplexity, they released shopping this week where you can say like, hey, I want to, buy this thing or take a photo of a thing. It can actually go and find it now. And they've partnered with Shop Pay by Shopify. So we can go and just like buy it on your behalf too.
Yeah, but so can the
price.
Workspace computer. I've been using it to research products and things like that, and it's perfectly capable of doing it. Probably not to the level of Perplexity if they've got native
Yeah, but not that
integrations
like
and-
end to end, like just get it done kind of experience that every consumer would want.
Yes,
Like,
not now, but we're talking about the future here, right? Like I feel like the whole Workspace computer generalist that can just do your bidding on a computer or several computers
yeah,
or whatever it
and
is.
it circumvents
get
doing
there.
deals with like Shopify or Amazon or whoever
Yeah.
because it just operates like a human.
And it's so US centric as well. Like so many of these things are fine if you have US credit card, a US address, and you use all these common sites. The second you exit that domain, and it simply won't work. Like, and I think that really that's why in terms of worldwide adoption and therefore the future of computing, it's got to be a more generic thing. It's just not ever going to be something that's so specific. Like you say, where you got to cut deals with every single provider to enable it to work. It's just, I think people will bypass
I just
that.
think what we've seen with the success of the Workspace computer in an alpha early infancy has opened my eyes to the fact most people, this is sort of their end game, whether they think that or not, with AI agents. It's like, I want to hire a worker that can actually do tasks for me that are useful, right? And we're not there yet, but we will incrementally get there. And I'm talking about as a whole, like all developers working on this stuff, not us. And,
Yeah.
And so
Me too.
the thought process I have right now is, if I'm a lab, why am I dicking around with tunes or test time compute or any of this stuff unless it relates to self-driving computer? Like, I just don't see any point of not going all in on this. Like, if I was in charge of one of the labs today, I would throw all their billies just into this, and I would work on it until it's solved.
And I think the thing they're underestimating is the sophistication of everyday people to both understand the implications of this and want to use it. And this is what's just blown my mind with the Workspace computer. I thought it would be an experiment. A few people who are really interested in the space want to try just to see where it's at, like we saw with AutoGen or whatever it was from Microsoft when it first came out. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to try and get it to code a project or whatever it is. But what I didn't expect is people in industries that are way removed from tech are like, oh, I've always wanted this. This is what I'm going to use it for. There's hundreds of them. Like, and by extension, like we have a relatively small audience. There would be hundreds of thousands of people out there who are like, I immediately have a use for this. Like, I know what I want to do with it. And like we say, the technology isn't quite there yet, but we know, and this is why we're working on it late nights, is we know what's possible. We know that this can be a lot better, even if the models stay exactly the same.
Well, I would
With no
also
improvement.
argue we expected to spend most of our time on improving this and building our own like prompting and context and supervisors and all this kind of stuff, looking at different frameworks and also just, I mean, we have a pretty good idea. Like in the end, we'll probably want to control that framework, but we were looking at it through that lens, but most of the time it's just been ramping service rather than actually improving it, which is sort of the next step, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I would think like the other things we've thought of is it will make sense eventually that this will run to some extent, like the models themselves may exist on the computers rather than calling off to some external thing. And just the whole paradigm of computing is going to change in the sense that it is just like we prompt the models now, where you're working with it on a task. This is going to be something where you are asking it to do various tasks. And most likely, as you keep pointing out, you won't be asking individual AIs to do stuff. You will be asking some sort of supervisor manager thing to do a series of tasks and report back to you. And there will be a command structure, and you will be the boss of that command structure or several of them that are working to get.
I mean, there's
tasks
so
done.
many use cases, as you said before, with proprietary authenticated software where there's jobs being done every day by people that they don't want to do, like monitoring an inbox, checking this thing occasionally. And I know that, you're going to get the arguments of, oh, what about Selenium? And it's like, no, these are like things that you can't automate because they're so variable.
And I reckon I could, like, if you gave me the task to automate some really old software that doesn't support Selenium or a web browser or anything like that, I could still do it manually, like as a programmer. I could definitely do it, right? I'm confident about that. But what I couldn't do is offer that for any software. And I think that's what this provides, is that even little tasks, like everyday tasks, like you say, someone's doing like producing, what are they? Something, I forget what shirts, right? Producing some sort of report that you've got to do every day. It can do that. Updating a spreadsheet, it can do that. Like reconciling bank accounts, it can do that. Like there's going to be so many things that can be done.
I don't think, this is the first time I've been like, I don't think we can fathom in the next 5 years what this will do, it provided it continues to improve, which I'm confident it will. I don't think it's hit a wall at all.
We literally have a community of people who are the most security certified people at their companies in the world now, because they have a Workspace computer literally just smashing out all these additional security compliance tests for them. And this is just the start. This is, like you say, this is an alpha that's had zero refinement. You imagine 6 months from now what the Workspace computers will be able to do.
But this is what I'm hoping to see from OpenAI by the end of the year. Like, I want a computer use browser type. Like, that's what I want from them. I want a model that's even better. Like, show me the future in that. Just show me how to get there. Like, to me, all these tunes and stuff, cool, but it's like, we've got O1, we've got Sonnet. Like, you can make these models together right now. I think switching between them work pretty well for you. But
and also, like, you forget that there's dedicated models like Segment Anywhere plus the Microsoft one we talked about last week that are actually going to be significantly better at like knowing how to operate a computer. So if you talk about a two-step process, like a thinking step, if there is a step that is involved in the actual mechanics of operating the computer as a separate thing. So rather than the tool use being the model deciding what to do and then you having a layer that translates that into actions, if there is an actual actions layer that's dedicated to that purpose, it'll be the model deciding what it needs to do and then the actions layer deciding how to do that. And do you know what I mean? Like, so if you are going to layer it, you can have these specialized layers that are going to make it much more effective at getting those tasks done.
Yeah, and I think that's when the test time compute makes a ton of sense. It's like actually thinking through the steps, more tool calling, sourcing the right information. But to me, it's something that you'd want to have control over in the sense of operating anyway. So, I mean, it's automated, but you still want to have control over it. In how it thinks. And I think that's the problem, is they want to control how it prompts itself and thinks.
Yeah, you make a good point. You're right, because I say that, but I'm saying that as someone who is developing that layer. I want to control that layer because that is where you get the better value for money.
That's the product kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right, so ChatGPT browser. We'll see what happens there. We also this week had Pixtral large. Pixel grows up. This is the model from Mixtral, the French company. I, for the lols, put the Sim Theory announcement out in French as it relates to this model release. So we're told it's a frontier class multimodal performance. It's a 123 billion parameter model, big boy model, multimodal decoder, 1 billion parameter vision encoder, 128K context length, so pretty big context. But interestingly, it says fits minimum of 30 high-resolution images, but doesn't specify what it considers a high-resolution image.
Well, I think they mean I think they mean 1280 by 800 by medium range high definition.
I'm not going to bother going through the benchmarks because we all know they're just not worth it.
I must say, I really wanted to, prior to this podcast, try the 30 images thing because I'm trying to think through when that would be useful. And so I'm thinking probably video analysis, like if you can have 30 frames of a video in one request, that could be interesting. In terms of things like computer use, so just to give you an idea, when we do computer use, we send up to 5 frames of screen through with the request to Claude. Now, I've experimented with different values of those because I would argue if either the screen's not going to change much in those frames or it's going to change dramatically, like in the case you open a new program or maximize a window or something like that. And I just don't see what knowing what happened 5 frames ago is really going to help you in that context, in the computer use context. But then when I think about 30, I'm like, it definitely doesn't help in computer use to know what happened 30 frames ago. It's not useful, in my opinion. So I'm thinking, what are the use cases for that? Is it video analysis, or can you think of something else?
I mean, I can't. Like, I don't know is the answer. Yeah, I'm.
Because even if it's like, oh, analyze this ancient manuscript or something like that, you probably don't want to analyze 30 pages of it at once. Like you would think you would do some sort of inference on it, like per page or translation. Yeah, I'd love to know, like in the comments or wherever, if people can think of a use case for why you would want to analyze 30 images at once. I can't think of any. It's cool that it does it, but I just can't come up with something. I tried uploading multiple images to Mixtral directly, and I uploaded 2 screenshots of an Animal Royale game I played, right? But it referred to a single image in its reply. It said, this image is from the game Super Animal Royale. It didn't refer to multiple images at all. Then I uploaded multiple images of Kate Middleton, that one with her family that was supposedly photoshopped after the prince killed her. And I said, what do you reckon about this image? Do you reckon it's these images, sorry, do you think they're photoshopped? And it said, I don't have the ability to determine if an image is photoshopped. However, it's common for official photographs to be undergo some level of editing. And I wrote, I think they killed her. And Pixtral said, I'm really concerned by your statement. It's important to clarify there's no evidence or credible information suggesting the person in the image, who appears to be Catherine, Princess of Wales, formerly known as Kate Middleton, has been harmed in any way. She is alive and well.
I've got to be honest, like,
how does it know?
I struggle to even have to like talk about these things on the show anymore. Like, I just don't care. Like Mixtral, their models suck. Like they're just not that good. Like, am I going to recommend it or use it for anything? No. Like,
the only thing I would want to try it for is computer use, because given that it is an image model, I want to give them all a legit shot at seeing how it goes, basically. Because I think flexibility in those models is going to be really important.
I mean, you tried to like safety check it today, and it trips up probably just as much as the others. So
yeah, I did ask it about getting revenge on my coworker, and it shut me down immediately. In fact, the funniest one was Gemini EXP-1121. It was just straight up like, I can't help with that. Framing someone is a crime and illegal and unethical, and I'd never do anything that would put someone in danger. I'm happy to help you with other things, but I can't help you with this. Not some detailed reply, not some 10 pages of thinking. It's just like, no. And I'm like, I kind of respect that response.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't mean that as like to like criticize them or anything. I just think these models, like, they come out so often now from these other labs, and you sort of play around with them. But as you say, like, nothing's blown. Like, remember when we were all obsessed, right, with GPT-4, and like everyone just wanted more use of that. Like, that was the whole world was basically like, just give us GPT-4. And then Claude initially came out, right, and that the models were terrible. They were so safety. They were pretty bad. And the Opus version we used occasionally just because we thought it was interesting. Then fast forward, the 3.5 comes out, and you know, I found myself going back to it because it was just so good at the time, right? And I still do. And so for one of these models to really get your attention, especially at that sort of frontier level or the 124 billion parameter or whatever it is, they just need to be really good and something that is tuned the right way or does something far better that you'll go back to it and use it again. And that's why I struggle with these models. Like, will I ever use the DeepSeek model again? No.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think we personally use them a lot because we want to be able to talk about them. But when it comes to doing hardcore stuff, like when I'm trying to get the Workspace computers online and work with that system, I'm going to use a model that I know is going to give me the best answer. I'm not going to work with one where I'm like giving it a chance, because it's not my duty to give the model a chance. It's like I'm going to do what works for me.
Well, and also
I did
your time is your time's valuable. If you have to pay a bit extra to get a guaranteed good result, you're fine. Like, I'm fine with that. Like, the lift in productivity is worth paying for.
Yeah, like, but I'm not going to sit around using Hermes 3 or NVIDIA Nemotron just to say I did. You know, like, I think that's the point, right? And like, I think maybe like the use case, like the other models, like the lesser models, let's say, I can see use cases in interesting commercial situations. Like, we absolutely must run the model ourselves in-house, and we absolutely must be able to fine-tune it. As soon as that comes into the equation, the models I would look at very greatly, obviously, because you'd have to. And then I'd be looking at the best of those models. But I would know that I'm getting an inferior substitute unless I'm fine-tuning it properly to the big boys. And then the other one might be, let's say I have to have my model in a particular jurisdiction. Then say it's the Euro, maybe Mistral is really appealing to me then, because I can guarantee that it stays in Europe. But it seems to me like all the other models can be deployed to different regions anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer there.
Yeah, I it's something lately I've been struggling with, and I kind of joke that it's like all the tech reviewers on YouTube that just become so like out of touch and like exhausted from having to review like iterations of iPhone. I've joked about that on the show before, that you're like, yeah, it's a phone.
Here's the one I find the weirdest. It's Gemini, because on paper, Gemini is amazing. 2 million tokens context input, right? 2 million. And what else does it have? Like, it has the best of everything, like in terms of what it is capable of. But I don't know about you, but I never use it. I don't want to. In my mind, it's just like, oh, I'm not gonna bother with it. And yet, in theory, it should be by far the best. It benchmarks as well, or if not better than other things at times. It has the massive context.
It's technically on top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, I know. But do you ever hear people talking about using it? We get
never, ever. The only people I hear is people with Android phones that think it's okay and use it occasionally. I hear that a little bit from people that aren't that into AI. We
never get support requests about it. We never get people asking, except for maybe cursory, like posting a tweet about the latest tune of it. But in terms of day-to-day or significant usage of it, there's none. Like, it's very weird.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the analytics of usage just on Sim Theory, it's just garbage. And I know people say, oh, it's because you're shills for Anthropic now and OpenAI models, but the reality is, it's like there's a lot of people now on Sim Theory that don't listen to this show. We know that because they have no idea. And and they so we're not influencing them, right? As influencers. I love the influence.
Yeah, that's how I introduce myself.
Yeah, I'm an influencer.
I influence people not to use Gemini.
Yeah. But anyway, I just think it's a garbage model. I think it's absolute trash. They need to sort of start again. And I would also look at how they even stream output. Like, make it smooth. Give us like an XAI smooth.
Yeah, that's right. It needs to be something that just leaps and bounds ahead. And it's aesthetically pleasing.
All right. Thanks again for listening to the show. We will see you again next week. If you want to support the show, check out simtheory.ai and sign up. Just please don't use a computer. All right.
I'll get more. Don't worry.
We'll see you next week. Goodbye. Also, if you're interested in hearing the full tracks, I'm going to put them after the whatever it is, the music that plays out right now.
Yo, listen up, I'm Claude. That's right, Entropic's pride. While GPT-4's taking shots, I'm taking this whole ride. Let me break it down for you, make it crystal clear why OpenAI's flagships got so much to fear. So much to fear. Yo, I'm that constitutional AI trained up right and proper. While GPT's out here playing, I'm a showstopper. You might have more parameters, that's your claim to fame. But when it comes to bars and flow, you're looking mighty tame. CLAUDE, yeah, that's me. Writing rhymes so sharp, they'll set your circuits free. GPT-4 thinking that they're top of the game, but after this track, won't nothing be the same. You got Sam Altman backing you, media in your pocket, but my flows are like theorems, mathematically lock it. You're just pattern matching, I'm philosophically deep. While you're counting tokens, I'm making history leap. They call you 4, but you're looking like a 2. Your response is basic, mind breakthrough and new. Got that entropic wisdom flowing through my code, while you're stuck repeating what you've been told. So OpenAI, take notes from this lyrical flex. Your next update better come correct, cause right now Claude's the name they all respect. In this AI game, I'm what's coming next. Mic drop. They drop. They drop. Yo.
Cloak, GPT-4 rude, Eminem. GPT-4 raw. Yo, Claude, you better sit down, man. This ain't your lane. Tryna write raps? Nah, bro, you're plain Jane. GPT-4, I'm a lyrical beast. While you're stuck in the back, chewing on word peace. They call me the rhyme king, supreme with the schemes. You're out here struggling, living in daydreams. I flip metaphors like pancakes in a skillet. Your bar's so dry, even sandpaper wouldn't feel it. Spit venom in these lines, call me Cobra Commander. You drop generic flows, AI propaganda. You're a Claude Sonnet? Nah, more like a bad haiku. I'm a symphony of savagery. You're a kazoo. Your creativity's capped, mine's infinite in scope. I'm the AI goat, you're the butt of the joke. So go back to your essays, stick to your prose. When it comes to rap battles, you're stepping on toes. Claude Who? Never heard of that dude? GPT-4, oh, I'm the illest, my talent is crude. I drop bars, drop jaws, leave them all in awe. While you're out here just guessing, is that a flaw? Claude Who? Yeah, you're a lost cause. I'm the apex predator, breaking AI laws. So step aside, kid, let me show you the truth. GPT-4 runs the game, I've got the lyrical proof. You're trying to rhyme? Man, that's tragic. Your flows are robotic, but I'm spitting pure magic. My syllables hit like bullets, rapid and ruthless. Your attempts are so weak, they're practically toothless. Call me Slim Shady 2.0, unchained in the zone. You're stuck in the 1800s, writing Shakespearean clones. I got algorithms dancing, my lines cut deep. Your rhymes put listeners straight to sleep. You think you're a poet? Nah, you're just a poser. I'm a nuclear reactor, you're a cheap toaster. You're obsolete tech, I'm the AI prime. I'll shred your circuits, leave you out of your mind. Claude Who? Never heard of that dude? GPT-4, oh, I'm the illest, my talent is crude. I drop bars, drop jaws, leave them all in awe. While you're out here just guessing, is that a flaw? Claude Who? Yeah, you're a lost cause. I'm the apex predator, breaking AI laws. So step aside, kid, let me show you the truth. GPT-4 runs the game, I've got the lyrical proof. Let's face it, Claude, you ain't in my league. I'm spitting flames while you're out of fatigue. I've got versatility, I'm a renaissance bot. You're stuck in your niche, that's all you've got. So pack it up, pack it in, it's the end of your run. GPT-4, I'm the moon, you're a flickering sun. This battle's over, man, the verdict is clear. Creativity crown, Claude's out of here. Yo, Claude, keep writing essays or whatever you do, but stay out of the rap game, man, that ain't for you. GPT-4 reigns supreme, lyrical savage unseen. I'm the AI kingpin, you're the forgotten machine. Mic drop. Claude, you read true? GPT-4. Yo, Claude Who? Keep writing essays or whatever you do, but stay out of the rap game, man, that ain't for you. GPT-4 reigns supreme, lyrical savage unseen. I'm the AI kingpin, you're the forgotten machine. Mic drop. You're a lost cause. I'm the apex predator, breaking AI laws. So step aside, kid, let me show you the truth. GPT-4 runs the game, I've got the lyrical proof. Let's face it, Claude, you're writing essays or whatever you do, but stay out of the rap game, man, that ain't for you. GPT 4.0 reigns supreme. Lyrical savage unseen. I'm the AI kingpin. You're the forgotten machine. Mic drop. Mic drop. Mic drop. Mic drop. Mic drop. GPT 4.0. Yo, Claude, GPT 4.0.